So when I was in here when we started this, we talked a little bit about pricing on some of the webinars, a couple of the webinars, that type of thing. He said 97%. We're kind of in favor of some of the things that we suggested, which actually I gave a price increase. So I'm not sure why they 97% held our hand up, but so yeah, both, yeah. So, but now here's what we're looking at. Divine was kind of a transactional model, even though they sold site licenses and you could buy some things in bulk. For the most part, they were very transactional, and that's the way most of our franchisees interacted with them, was transactionally. OutMatch's model is totally different. It's you pay a price and you get access to everything, right? And that seemed like a very unique but interesting model. So we've been running numbers looking at some of that. And in other words, the concept would be one of two things. Either we come up with a price, and it's probably individual franchisees, based on your history, what you've purchased over the last 3 years, call it. And we say, all right, here's a number that you would pay, and you have unlimited licenses you can run.
That unlimited credits?
And it would be credits put into your account equivalent to that, however that works on your end. And so that's one of the models we could look at and have looked at. Now, the good news with that is with Divine, you had to, if you had that site license or some other large account you were dealing with where they gave special pricing, there was a contract and they were a third party to the contract, a bunch of paperwork back and forth. We don't want to get into that game, right? Because that would fall on Sandler to do that, and we don't want to get into that mess. We don't have the time to deal with it. So what solves it is this, pay a price, all you can eat, so to speak. That way you run into those contracts, you got unlimited licenses. You run them on whoever you want to run them with. You're just taking a gamble and you would be paying us. That's the difference in this model now, right? You're paying Sandler, not Divine or not OutMatch. Why is that? Because they didn't really want it. They're not in the transactional business. They didn't want anything to do with it. We had to figure out if we wanted to deal with it, quite frankly.
But if we just said to OutMatch and we'll just throw a number, it's $20,000 for the year. I don't know how you take payment, whether it's monthly or yearly or quarterly. Here's the payment. That's not a transactional business.
Well, yeah, but they don't want to deal with, they see us, and it's the way a lot of the companies, not just OutMatch, comes to us. They want one choke to throat, or throat to choke, right? So they want us to foot the bill, right? They want everything to come through us because they don't want to deal with each and every franchise in terms of billing. OutMatch is no different. So billing would come through us. So on this concept, if Andrew, just pick a number, whatever the number was, $30,000, and you had unlimited usage to the platform, we would just simply bill you monthly for the $30,000, and you run as many assessments as you wanted to. The other concept is what we would call bulk, meaning you pay a price. In the case of Andrew, it may be less than $30,000, but for that money, then we put in X number of credits over and above what that $30,000 would reflect. Does that make some sense? Where pay $30,000, but which might equate to X number of estimates based on the current pricing. Then we put an extra, call it 2,000 credits on there, and you got 2,000 extra credits that you could sell as assessments. A credit is an assessment. So you could go that route also. So that's the two concepts. Is they're both kind of a bulk kind of license. We could set some limits on it, or it's just unlimited.
And Steve, to clarify, even if you did the you would just assess at the next year. You'd look at their usage for the prior year.
Yep.
So it might change over time, but you would be set for a year.
Exactly. So, and it would end at the end of the year, and then it's a new year. So if you went over that by a bunch, we have a different conversation, right? But it's the easiest way to do it. We don't have to get involved in the paperwork and the back and forth and third party stuff. And you just run as many as you want to run is a concept I like.
I'm not sure I understood your goal. So you say like you basically charge us for, so it's $85 that assessment as it stands today.
80.
Or 80.
80 American.
Yeah.
Oh.
We're in America, right? This isn't the only dollar, right? Anyway, it's $80, right? And so I want to know is if you sold us 1,000 of them and that's your goal, are you charging us 1,000 times 80? Like I want to know what.
No, we would be setting a price. It's again a different spin off the all you can eat. In other words, if you had been spending on $30,000 a year for the last 3 years, the other concept would be that let's say we charged you $30,000. And instead of the all you can eat, what we could do is maybe charge you less than the 30,000 on average you've been running. And what we would do is add credits to that beyond that number, where now you could run, just pretend this 20 or 30,000 stood for 3,000 assessments, whatever that number is. We would put an extra 2,000 on there on this bulk concept, right? And you could run up to 5,000 assessments for a price for the year.
So in the context of how you've done it with Divine,
Yes.
we offered both on Divine, but you had to buy it for a specific client. So it was $80 per, but if you
Right.
bought 100 of them up front, you only had to pay 70 per. So you saved money. So it's that same concept, only now it doesn't have to be for just one client. You're buying that for your franchise, for your for the year.
Yeah.
So you can say, okay, I just want to buy 500, and they're going to give you a reduced rate based on that quantity, and you're set. And then when you use up those 500, then you would buy another.
You buy another quantity.
So there would,
right.
There would be no
Yeah.
options to continue to do it how we've been doing it?
Yes, you can do that. I don't think there's no way, based on the disparity of the top to the bottom in terms of what people spend, there's no way that we could possibly do that for a good segment of the network. So you would purchase transactionally the way you've always done, if that's what you choose to do. Same price you are now. Yeah.
I have a question because they're asking this online too. So if you do transactional, that's like billing after the fact. So are you going to allow them to do pay after the fact, or is there going to be some minimum level where, okay, maybe you only buy 10 and it's still 80 per?
Well, you could do that. I think if we do, if you're able to buy in blocks, and we've looked at those blocks of licenses, we can do it like that also. I'm saying you could purchase transactionally, or we would have these smaller blocks that you could buy, right? For a person's just not running that many assessments. So I call that transactional, even though it's not one at a time necessarily.
So one more question.
Yeah.
Since we're now paying Sandler,
Mm-hmm.
no longer paying Divine, that can count as a Sandler product purchase?
Yes, it does.
So just so I'm understanding, you're going to give us a price list on, okay, this many assessments is this price, this many assessments is this price, so we can go, okay, based on last year, I bought 500, I'm going to buy 500 this year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and let's say you don't use them all at the end of the year.
They go away.
Your Divine business tanks for some reason. And all
Go away.
There is no carryover in this. There is no carryover in this. Right. So, but I think what you could do, I mean, you know your trends pretty well. And I think once we get the price sheets out there, I think you'll be able to figure that out and what makes sense for your business, whether it's the smaller bites or whether it's you go and get a good price on the bulk and run all you can eat. So.
Can you repeat her question for them online? Their question too, they want to understand that. So.
Your question was.
Yeah, you show the prices, this many, 1 to 50, 50 to 500, or whatever, 100, 100 to 200, whatever.
Yeah.
We can make the decision
Yeah, and the question was, are we going to have a price list eventually and show these different pricing models that we're going to go with? Answer is yes to that.
And will there be one in Canadian dollars, or are we buying it from, because one of our big angsts as a Canadian is we buy Canadian pesos. So one that's $1.30, it's 1.35, next month it's 1.39. My assessment prices change monthly.
Clients don't like that, just FYI.
Yeah, makes sense. We'll have to take a look at it. We hadn't,
I have an enterprise license that I negotiated at a certain price.
and it fluctuates.
It was
Yeah.
$1.25.
Yeah, we haven't talked about that, but we'll take a look at that because it's a good point. I mean, we got a lot of international partners that are faced with the same thing. So we'll have to take a look at that and see what we could do to kind of even some of that out.
Are you floating ideas by us, or you have set on ideas and you're just gonna share the pricing figures sometime later?
The latter.
Is that tomorrow morning?
I'm sorry?
Will that be tomorrow morning?
No, it won't be. It won't be because we're running back and we crunched a bunch of these different numbers. I think what it's going to end up, at least nobody's in disagreement on this internally, but you're going to have the option for all you can eat. You'll be able to purchase in smaller chunks, I call transactional. And then we probably would have a third model of if you get a good price on some bulk of licenses, then we'd put X credits in there, which would be more than what you purchased. And then you have these, you can buy in chunks again as you go and as you use those licenses. So I think it'll be two, maybe all three of those models as we look at the network and their needs. So that's our plan. It's not too different from what you were doing with site licenses and bulk licenses with Divine. It's just you don't have to use them for a specific client. Right.
Mm-hmm. Let's pretend hypothetically I spent 36 grand for the last 3 years, which is nicely $3,000 a month. If I say to you, okay, here's 3 grand a month, I get all I can eat, which means maybe I took more expense than I was able to resell and I lost money. And maybe we had a banger here, we used more. And either you or OutMatch thinks, oh shit, that was a bad deal for me.
Yeah.
But if we agree on that model, it's whatever we use. And if I don't want to take that risk, then I might say, well, the bulk pricing makes sense. I'll just realize that I need to buy 2 or 3 bulk packages if our assessment business grew.
Yeah, you just buy as you go, kind of, once you. Yeah, that's right. Thanks for putting it that way. I think but that's the models I see. I think it makes the most sense. I think it's good for your business based on what you think you're going to do annually, right?
I guess I'm a little confused. We're rolling out in December and we still don't have pricing. I'm kind of going, that seems odd to me that we still have not seen definitive pricing.
Yeah, it probably is odd. But you're going to see it very quickly. We all of this has really come about. I mean, in the last, I'd say 4 months, it's really 3-4 months it's come together. We had to get a contract worked out with OutMatch. We had no idea about the sale of Divine or the acquisition. We find out they come to us. We don't know OutMatch, right? And we had to understand exactly what their business model was and what their intentions were with Sandler. And it took us, 2 months probably to get our contract squared away, right? And then they had to come up with a rollout plan, and how we're going to get people trained and going through all of that. And at the same time, we were trying to figure out this pricing model, and actually OutMatch actually put together an Excel spreadsheet and say, hey, based on what we see, we think this is probably the best model for your network. And we agree with that. So that all occurred 3 weeks ago. 2 to 3. Yeah. So we had to gather internally and just kind of talk about it a bit. Otherwise, we were just going transactionally, just the way you've done it in the past. And we were just going to go that route, not raise prices, not do any of that. So, but I think this concept is a better deal for your businesses. It's good for us. And you got some options on how you want to price it in terms of your franchise.
Will this be something we order online, or are we
No, you'll order right through OutMatch, because they'll just put the credits in there, whether it's unlimited or whether it's, and you'll just go in and order through their platform. You don't have to order from us in that situation.
So if I take the option of buying credits, and then I buy 2,000, and then let's say, month 11 of our fiscal year, I need to buy another 2,000, will they be valid for 12 months from the time of purchase?
How have y'all worked that in the past?
Yeah, that's, so just to be fair to Steve, we, first off, we have a history of working with resellers that was transactional. And it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work for you. It's a lot of work for us. So we moved towards these two options with our network of resellers, and it's worked really, really well. It's hard to wrap your head around without seeing the two prices, without seeing the options on paper. So once that comes out, that'll be clear. Relative to a situation like that, yeah, as Steve said, there's always going to be an option to just augment. Let's say I bought a bulk license that's going to expire and I'm out. You can just buy transactionally until you renew. Or what we do with our resellers is we let them early renew, and then it's another 12-month, the clock starts anew on month 11 or something.
That makes sense.
So there's a couple different, those are some of the exceptions to the rule that you have to figure out, but that's going to be a standard play. But once you get into this, it will be simpler, and you also will have the ability to price to your clients at whatever your value is, instead of having to worry about what Divine or OutMatch or even corporate says is the price.
Yeah.
So in terms of the number, I do a lot of hiring licenses, which are unlimited for particular clients, like 40, 60, 80. I have no idea how many people they're actually assessing. So when you look at buying in bulk, I don't know, like if I buy 6 hiring licenses for my clients, like I don't know, they have 100. How do I, do you help interpret? Like I have no idea how many assessments I bought based on that.
Lori can.
We have a participant report, activity report. You can go into ADN right now and you can go to the reports tab, put in the time period, like if you want to see how much usage you've had over the last 12 months, you put that 12 months in, select the name of your franchise, and it'll show all of your usage for the year. And when you print the report, it'll even break it down and tell you if it was a site license or if it was a bill for use. So you can get an idea of what your usage was for the whole year.
I get your point, Charlie. When you do a site license, that's going to cause some grief, because I have some clients that do a site license and they use 15 assessments, and I got another client that uses a site license and I've got 75 assessments going through, and that's going to run through my bulk purchase pretty darn fast, but I'm not charging either client a different price. Traditionally, it's the same price. It doesn't matter how many they did. So
based on your job model, that might be why you choose the unlimited plan versus the bulk plan. So
It could be.
And again, you're going to base it, they're going to look at your historical usage.
Or you buy the bulk and then you're just buying in increments if indeed the client ran 200 instead of 100 traditionally. It's another way to do it too. So, I mean, we're gonna publish this pricing as soon as we can get it together, because we know you need that to go back to your clients, and all this starts January 1. It's a tight time frame, not a lot of weeks left, but we'll get that pricing in your hands here very shortly. All right. Yeah.
I think I've done a great job. I think a lot of the people that you're talking to here, like in this room, have a really poor score on response to change.
Well, like I said in the beginning of this thing, I mean, OutMatch has just really been a great partner so far. And I was sitting on the front end of this, and there's things I was having a hallway conversation. In Divine, really, there was 15 years of change, right? If you were here that long, I mean, all the increments and the changes and the enhancements that were done over time, that was 15 years of change. And you got a good product. It's a great assessment, as they said, right? Good science behind it. But it was 15 years of working on it, right? So I think in this situation, we got good science, got a great platform. Assessments are pretty close. There's some development things I heard earlier that I know this group is going to handle for us. I got a lot of confidence in that. So I'm just saying it's going to evolve here, and there's just a number of things we're going to have to do to enhance. But I know they're 100% committed to make it happen, and got a lot of confidence in them. So with that, any other pricing questions? I think we covered it.
Steve, do you have a target date when you're gonna have that pricing?
No, I mean, my hope is to have it to you by the end of the month. I think we can do that.
Which month?
What month are we in? It's November, I think, isn't it? All right, end of November.
And if I can say too, for those who are considering joining, the wave that's occurring in December, we are not charging for any usage on the OutMatch assessment platform through this year. So, it's our way of, just getting you acclimated. The beta people who are already on it, there's no, assessment fee. So anything that you're charging your clients, that's just revenue that you're making. So that's I just want you to throw that out there so you know that from now till December 31st, any assessment you do on the OutMatch assessment platform, there's no cost.
Very cool.
So-
Thanks. Yeah, the last piece of this was just to open it up for any general questions. That was the pricing conversation. I think that will get a lot clearer when there is a sheet out there and you can compare your options. But is there any other feedback for today or questions that are left open?
So just a follow-up question, to qualify for the free assessments to the end of the year, do you have to be on wave 1?
Yes.
We're calling wave 1 is the beta. So wave 2 will be December.
Yeah, right.
And
I'm
we'll
sorry.
have something at our booth. If you want to be in wave 2, you can put your card in the wave 2 bucket.
Yeah, it'll be clearly marked on the buckets, December, January. Any other questions?
Just a comment, Alice. I don't think don't want change. I think I'm pretty excited about it. I think it's pretty awesome. It's easy to read. We used to do a lot of assessments. It's a big chunk of our revenue, and
Right.
I just want to make sure it's easy to make money.
Right.
That's what it's all about, the jingle of my jingles.
Right. We like that. We like that. At the end of the day, that is our goal, is to take the friction out of the sales process as much as possible, and that you guys run with this. So that's.
So something
that's
that, I'm
what
just
we're
gonna
doing.
make
Yes.
a quick statement on that, is something I've considered doing as we move into the beginning of the year, is for me to have an open forum. Yeah, I don't know what day that will be, this is something to throw out there, where it'll be a GoToWebinar or GoToMeeting where you could join, it could be weekly. It's not something that will have any type of structure more than the fact that you have an opportunity or are looking to how to position something within the OutMatch assessment. Does that sound like something that you would be involved in or be a part of? Okay, so there'd be people that would join, right? So that would be use of my time, but that would be something that I'm considering.
Great idea.
Cool.
All
Can I
right.
get a quick show of hands? Is there anybody here that didn't actually register for the session? That just showed up? Okay. We're gonna be doing a survey. We want your feedback. Everything's about feedback so we can make improvements and answer questions you have. So if you register, you'll get it automatically, but I'll be sure to. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, folks.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Thanks. And thanks for your.
Okay, the webinar is going to be closing now. Please send any questions you have, and there will be a follow-up survey for you.